In the quiet hills of northern Texas lies Whitmore Canine Estate, a vast property where the most dangerous dog in the country waits, untamed, feared, and believed to be beyond saving. For 6 long months, no trainer has dared to approach Max, the massive German shepherd with a haunted past and a fierce reputation. But when a 12-year-old black homeless girl hears about the $1 million challenge to tame him, she makes a choice that surprises everyone. This is a story about unlikely courage, unexpected trust, and how one small act can change everything. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps give light to voices that deserve to be seen and heard. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the sprawling fields of Whitmore Canine Estate, a pristine property tucked deep in the quiet hills of northern Texas. Rows of sturdy kennels lined the fences, each housing dogs bred, trained, and cared for with military precision. But farthest back from all the others was a kennel no one dared approach. Inside lived Max, a massive German shepherd with eyes burning cold like embers and a reputation darker than the scars on his muzzle. Max didn't bark, he growled. He didn't chase, he attacked. 3 trainers had tried and failed to tame him in the past 6 months. 2 walked away with stitches, 1 with a broken arm. Yet Mr. Whitmore, the billionaire tech mogul turned recluse, refused to put Max down or give him away. No one understood why, until someone noticed an old, faded photo on his office shelf. A boy, maybe 8 years old, sitting on a doorstep, holding a dog that looked exactly like Max. The caption read, "Me and Duke, 1965. Whitmore had always been a proud, distant man, hard to approach, harder to read, but with dogs he softened. They were his last link to something human, to a past he couldn't forget. That's why, standing by the fence with his arms crossed and a cold wind tugging at his silver hair, he made the announcement himself. $1 million to whoever could make Max friendly again, not just obedient but gentle. Trusting. No one laughed. Not a single soul thought it was a joke. Because they all knew this wasn't about money. It was about saving what Whitmore couldn't let go of, the last connection to the only love he ever truly knew. Meanwhile, in the heart of the city, where no one ever noticed the small or the silent, a black, homeless little girl named Maya drifted like smoke. Unseen, unwanted, unclaimed. At just 12 years old, she had already mastered the art of disappearing into crowds, sleeping on cold concrete without shivering too loudly, and asking for help without saying a word. Her days were a blur of red traffic lights and hurried footsteps. She worked busy street corners, wiping windshields with a rag full of holes, offering candy to strangers who rarely stopped. Her voice had grown quiet, not from shyness, but because the world rarely listened. So she stopped speaking to it. Maya didn't remember her parents, not really. Only hazy fragments, a lullaby, a soft jacket, the smell of cinnamon. But those memories had long been traded for cold nights and empty stomachs. One afternoon, crouched near a parking lot, she overheard 2 delivery drivers talking beside their truck. Crazy old billionaires offering $1 million now for a dog, one said. The other scoffed. Not just any dog. That shepherd's a demon. Tore up a grown man's arm. Maya's ears perked. She didn't move or blink. Just listened. Anyone who can make it friendly again gets the money, the first driver said. That night, Maya curled up beneath a rusted awning behind a closed gas station. Her sweatshirt was damp, her fingers numb from the cold. But hunger and cold weren't on her mind. Instead, her thoughts circled the dog. She didn't care about the money, didn't even know what $1 million really meant. But something about that dog, something about the idea that no one could reach it, struck a chord deep inside her. It echoed through her ribs, whispering, "Maybe it needs someone like me." Before dawn, Maya woke while the city still slept, wrapped in fog and distant sirens. Her back ached from the cold pavement, but she sat up with a purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. She had no address, no GPS. just a name she'd heard in passing, Whitmore Canine Estate, and a feeling that it existed far outside the city, beyond the highways and the noise. She stood, tied her worn sneakers, slung a plastic water bottle over her shoulder, and started walking. The streets were quiet as she moved, cutting through alleyways, crossing railroad tracks, and heading toward the countryside. She stopped a few times to ask for directions. Some people shrugged, some laughed, others pointed vaguely. "Keep going past the fields," one said. "It's way out there, kid. You're wasting your time." But Maya didn't turn back. By midday, the concrete gave way to dirt roads and dry grass. Her legs burned, lips cracked. Once she nearly stepped on a snake. Twice she thought about quitting. But something inside her, the part that still hoped despite everything, kept pushing her forward. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, she reached the first sign of the estate. A tall wooden gate flanked by iron bars and 2 silent security cameras. Beyond it stretched rolling hills and buildings too far away to make out clearly. Her stomach rumbled. Her legs trembled, but she stepped closer, her hand resting on the cold metal fence as she whispered, "I made it." She didn't know what she'd say, or if anyone would listen, but she had walked every step alone, and that meant something. The first time Maya knocked on the gate, no one came. She waited, gripping the iron bars, eyes scanning for movement beyond the trees. After what felt like an hour, a guard appeared. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a pressed uniform and mirrored sunglasses that reflected her dirt-covered face back at her. "What do you want, kid?" he asked, his voice steady but clipped. "I heard about the dog, Max. I want to try." He snorted, more like a growl than a laugh. "You try with Max? That dog eat you for breakfast." He didn't open the gate or ask her name. He just turned and walked away. But Maya didn't leave that night. She curled up beside the gate, zipped her jacket up to her chin, arms wrapped tight around her knees. Coyotes howled in the distance. The wind bit at her skin. But she didn't move. The next morning she was there again, waiting. The same guard appeared and asked, "If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps give light to voices that deserve to be seen and heard." "Still here?" "Go home," the guard said bluntly. "I don't have one," Maya replied quietly, her voice steady despite the chill in the air. By the third day, whispers began to ripple through the staff. The girl at the gate, the one who refused to leave. One of the groundskeepers, moved by something he couldn't explain, slipped her half a sandwich without a word. Maya nodded her thanks, eating each bite carefully as if it might vanish if she blinked. On the 4th morning, as the sun climbed over the hills, Maya stood in the same spot. Her hair was tangled, shoes worn through, but her eyes held an unwavering resolve. The second guard, a quieter, older man, watched her silently before speaking into his radio. "Sir, there's a kid here. She's been coming back every day. Says she wants to meet Max." A pause, static, then a voice on the other end. "I'll be there in 10. Maya didn't know who had finally agreed to see her. But she didn't flinch, didn't run, didn't smile. She simply waited, exactly the way she always had. The first sound she heard was the crunch of polished boots on gravel. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. The man walking toward her carried a silence so heavy it made everyone around straighten up without even realizing it. His name didn't need to be said. Mr. Whitmore, the billionaire behind the $1 million challenge, the man who hadn't spoken to the press in over a decade, once a fixture on every magazine cover, now lived hidden behind fences and guarded dogs. Despite the Texas heat, he wore a dark overcoat, and a deep frown was etched between his silver eyebrows. His posture was firm, proud, deliberate, as if he didn't walk so much as command the very ground beneath him. He stopped a few feet from Maya. The guard stepped back. He studied her, from her matted hair to her torn shoes, with sharp, unreadable eyes that didn't blink. "You're the one who's been waiting." Maya nodded. "Well?" His voice was low, steady. Her answer came quiet but without hesitation. I heard no one could reach Max. Maybe that's why I should try. Whitmore's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his gaze. Surprise, maybe, or a long-buried memory. He's not safe, Whitmore said. I know, she replied. And you think you can help him? No, she said softly. I don't think I can fix him. I just think maybe he doesn't need fixing. Maybe he just needs someone to stay. The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. Then, slowly, Mr. Whitmore removed his sunglasses, revealing eyes that had seen too much and forgotten too little. He looked past her toward the kennel far off in the distance, then back at her. Be here at sunrise. You'll have one chance. Maya didn't thank him. She simply nodded, calm and certain, as if she had been waiting for that moment her whole life. Before the sun fully rose, Maya stepped into the yard. The grass was still damp beneath her feet, and the morning air bit through her thin hoodie. Her fingers trembled, not from cold, but from the weight of what lay ahead. Today wasn't about warmth. It was about courage. Across the field, handlers prepared. One of them walked toward the far corner of the enclosure, where a thick reinforced post was planted firmly in the earth. Coiled around it was a heavy-duty tether. Max hadn't been allowed to roam free for months, not since what he'd done to the last trainer. Mr. Whitmore stood nearby, arms folded tightly, jaw clenched. His expression betrayed nothing, but his presence spoke louder than words. He needed to see this for himself. When Max appeared, the air changed. Electric charged. Every heartbeat seemed to sync with the low growl rumbling from deep in the dog's throat. His coat gleamed black and gray, tight over lean, powerful muscles. His ears perked, body tense, teeth slightly bared. The handler clipped the tether to his thick collar and stepped back, eyes already wary. Max snarled, a deep, guttural sound, pulling against the chain with such force the ground seemed to shake. Maya didn't flinch. She stood just beyond the tether's length, far enough to be safe, close enough to be seen. She didn't speak, didn't wave, didn't challenge. She simply knelt. No tools, no commands, no tricks. Just stillness. Max barked, a sharp, threatening explosion, then lunged against the tether. Dust kicked up around his paws as he paced in tight circles, pulling, testing, watching. And Maya waited, quiet, steady, present. Minutes slipped by. 10, maybe 15. Max stopped barking, but his body still twitched with tension. He stood at the farthest reach of his chain, breathing heavily, eyes fixed on the girl who refused to be afraid. Maya stayed kneeling, hands resting gently on her knees. Her gaze wasn't on Max. Not directly. She stared past him softly, giving him space, offering no challenge. She didn't move. She didn't even blink too much. At the edge of the yard, handlers shifted uneasily. One whispered, "We should pull her out." Another shook his head, eyes fixed on Mr. Whitmore, arms still crossed but jaw now slightly unclenched. Then Max did something that made everyone freeze. He said, not out of obedience, not because of training, but because for the first time he seemed curious. His ears twitched forward. His tail, still low, gave the faintest flick. Maya noticed but didn't react. Slowly, carefully, she reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a small, half-eaten granola bar. She unwrapped it and placed it gently in front of her, then moved her hand away. Max's eyes flicked to the granola bar, then to Maya, then back to the food. Another minute passed. He stood slowly, took one cautious step forward, the chain clinking softly. Then another and another until he reached the tether's edge, just inches from the granola bar and from Maya. He didn't snarl, he didn't growl, he just stood there, breathing heavily, his face barely inches from hers. Maya lowered her eyes, careful never to make direct contact, and whispered just loud enough for Max alone to hear. "It's okay. I'm not here to make you do anything. I just want to be here." Something inside Max shifted, like a thread pulled loose from a tight knot of fear. the softness of her voice, its gentle calm, stirred something buried deep within him. A memory, perhaps, a forgotten warmth, the echo of a love he once knew and lost. Suddenly, he no longer felt the need to protect himself. He leaned down, took the granola bar from her hand, and sat beside her. No force, no fear, no commands. Only stillness, only trust. Silence hung heavy in the air long after Max settled beside Maya. No one moved, no one spoke. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath. Slowly, Mr. Whitmore stepped forward, his shoes crunching softly on the gravel. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. The handlers lowered their radios. Something unspoken had shifted. He stopped a few feet away, eyes locked on the unlikely pair sitting in the morning light. The stray girl and the dog no one else could reach. "You did it," he said finally, voice low but clear. "No one else has ever gotten close. You won, Maya." She turned her head toward him but didn't rise. The $1 million was hers, as promised. She looked down at Max, who now rested his body against her side, breathing steady, almost calm. She stroked his back once, then slowly stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "I don't want the money," she said. A hush swept the yard. Whitmore raised an eyebrow but said nothing, waiting. "I want a room," Maya continued, voice steady but soft, "somewhere safe. A bed I won't get kicked out of in the middle of the night, 2 meals a day, and school. I want to go to school." Her voice didn't shake, but a flicker of vulnerability crossed her eyes, quickly buried beneath the same steady calm that had tamed Max. Whitmore stared at her, as if trying to grasp something far larger than her words. "That's all?" he asked. She nodded. "That's all?" He looked past her to Max, whose eyes followed every movement, not with fear, but with quiet alertness. Then, back to Maya. He exhaled slowly and spoke softer this time. "You'll live in the main house. We have an extra room. You'll eat with me. And we'll get you enrolled first thing tomorrow." Maya didn't cry, not out loud, but for the first time in years, her shoulders relaxed. She gave a small nod. "Thank you." Whitmore stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder with surprising gentleness. "You don't know what you've done here," he said, "not just for him, for me, too." That night, Maya slept in a real bed for the first time in her life. The mattress was soft, the sheet smelled faintly of lavender. The pillow cradled her head like it had been waiting for her all along. Her room was simple, a dresser, a small window, a desk with a lamp, but to her it felt like a palace. Outside her door, Max lay curled up, ears twitching at every sound, guarding her from a world that had never been kind. He didn't bark, he didn't growl, he just waited. Loyal and quiet, like the girl who had taught him to trust again. In the room across the hall, Mr. Whitmore sat alone on the edge of his bed, the faded photo of me and Duke, 1965, in his hands. He stared at it, not with sadness this time, but with something close to peace. He whispered to the photo, "She didn't fix him. She reminded me I was never broken." The next morning, Maya walked beside Mr. Whitmore like she'd always belonged there, barefoot, calm, with Max trailing behind like a shadow that had finally found its place. No one questioned it, no one doubted it. Later that week, Maya was enrolled in school. Whitmore had a new routine now: morning coffee, reading the paper, packing a small lunch bag with Maya's name on it. Max waited by the gate every afternoon, tail wagging like clockwork. People in town began asking about the girl at the estate, the girl who changed the impossible dog. And when they heard her story, most just smiled and said some things money can't fix. Because in the end, it wasn't about the $1 million. It was about being seen, being safe, being believed in, if only once. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything. Thank you for joining us today and sharing in this story of quiet courage and the healing power of kindness. Sometimes it's the smallest acts, a moment of trust, a simple gesture, a chance given, that ripple out and change lives forever. In a world that can feel overwhelming, remember that compassion and justice begin with each of us, one gentle step at a time. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to Kindlight Stories so together we can keep spreading hope, understanding, and light to those who need it most. As the poet Rumi once said, "Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder." May we all be the rain that nurtures kindness in the world.